Are we risking more than 80% satisfied patients with excellent long-term results in trying to get better outcome in the rest by tweaking what has consistently worked? So why change? Why to make this change? Because we are restless people, we are restless humans. We always question ourselves, are we good? Are we getting better? And how do we know that we are getting better? And what is the problem that we are trying to solve? Are there opportunities to try to achieve it? And how are we going to measure it? And in these fundamental questions lies our quest to do what we want to do. Knee replacement, many of you may not like this slide, but this is the truth. It is not as good as we like them to be. Almost 20% of our patients who have undergone TKRs are dissatisfied. 1/3 of our young patients still desire more from their knees. And there is a clear difference between what surgeons perceive and what patients perceive in terms of their reported outcome measures. So definitely there is some room for improvement. And what are we chasing? I think if we look at knee replacement, we are chasing two things: improved survivorship and improved patient satisfaction, which is basically what registry shows us and what the forgotten joint knee score tells us. And we all know this is the survivorship data, 82% at 25 years, 70% for UKS at 25 years. So we certainly want to have an operation that lasts long time and probably lifetime. And we have all dealt with these and also these. So we have unhappy patients and we have got survivorship issues. And we know that incremental improvements and things that we think make the difference are there and probably are not measured in the way we do our job. So what we chase, these are two very successful operations. If you look at total knee replacement, we know that it's a high implant survivorship, but it's got lower patient satisfaction. UK has very high patient satisfaction and low implant survivorship. So can we change this? Is there a way we can make a difference and chase what we want? So what is success? When we look at the success is about knowledge, it's about execution, it is about validation. And it is like solving a crossword puzzle where technique, talent, and teamwork. I think these are the three key elements for being successful in life, in an operation, in everything. And I think one of the missing pieces is, of course, technology. If we have all four of this, I think no matter in what we choose, we will be able to achieve success. So robots has been around. How do we define a robot? Robot is a software controllable mechanical device that uses sensors to guide one or more end effectors through programmed motion in workspace in order to manipulate physical object. Very complicated definition, but anything that makes our work easy is a robot, is a machine. And there are different types and manner in which it is done. People talk a lot about industrial robots, and there is a lot of fear in the mind that the robots will take over jobs, and it's a fair thing. But fortunately for all of us sitting here, I think unlike the industrial robot, while they have a common root, they do not share the rationale. The industrial robots are pure mechanical robot aimed at replacing human being with automation. But here there are counterparts. The robot that we have today for the medical use will act as an extension of our arm. And undoubtedly, as a testimony to the faith in the technology, nearly every company on this implant side is working or has come out with a robotic system, and you can see a variety of robots being displayed there. So how can we be better? Clearly by evolving. And how do we evolve? Of course, there are controversies. I think controversies makes medicine much more richer. But moving from controversy to consensus on a very particular issue, very particular important issue of alignment, avoiding errors in execution and validating what we are doing is correct or not. And I would tell this to all my fellows and residents: be stubborn about your goals, what you want to achieve, but be flexible about your methods. And I think that is what it is about getting better. We all know about how manual little differences here and there are seen in our day-to-day manual instrumentation. And I love this statement by one of my mentors, Dr. Ranawat. And he said, the one factor which defines an operation as good, that it must be reproducible. Reproducible by you every time and reproducible by every hand. And I think that is the key thing what we'll do. We also know that the accuracy affects survival, and there are enough papers, and I'll not go into detail, and this is so much more true for unicompartmental knee replacement. The principle of Kaizen, I think if you look at this slide, it may seem that this small incremental improvement that robotics make perhaps makes no difference. But I would point out here that if you look that 1% improvement happening every 365 days and 1% wrong thing happening for the rest 365 days, and the difference is huge. And that is where the ability to that make a very small continuous change is what makes our pursuit for excellence much more important. Talking about philosophies in alignment, and I think that's where all the debate about the heat is. The fact that in 1970s we started with a particular philosophy, then in 1990s we shifted from mechanical to kinematic, anatomical alignment. 2000, everyone wanted to hear talk about kinematic alignment and constitutional alignment. 2010, people felt, no, there's something more that needs to be understood, and we came out to be talking about adjusted mechanical or restricted kinematic alignment. But I think the fact that we had so much controversy, so much debate, discussion about a simple aspect is a testimony that something more intelligently needs to be done. And that is what I call as intelligent alignment, where the surgeon's experience, of course that is paramount, objectivity in what he is doing, the use of technology including robotics will make us reach a consensus in a very controversial subject. As I said, there is such a wide margin in our discussion today that someone from +2 to -8, -9, we don't know where the alignment rests. And I think this is what it is. It is the ability to change with time. And I think we are all culprit of this thing. Every generation imagines itself to be more intelligent than the one that went before it, and the wiser than one comes after it. And that is what makes us human. I think this is there, but it is what makes us human. So we have changed. And what has prompted this change in last 2 decades? Understanding that not all patient pathologies are the same. Not all patient expectations are the same. And the registry, which is like the holy grail, has shown that no matter what philosophy we choose, we are equally either good, if you want to look at it good way, or equally bad. And data is here to bring much more objectivity. So we have changed. And one of the papers that helped make us this change was by John Bellarmine, who told that there is difference in each of us, and this difference was later also kind of exemplified by doing a CPAC classification, which showed that this is the different patterns in which all of the humans behaved. And we weighed in with our own paper, where for the first time we defined what is a joint. And I am sure we have got all specialties here. I think joint means different for each of us. For an arthroscopy surgeon, it is the area between the capsule. For a deformity correction surgeon, it meant a line. But we defined it as the area between the ligament, and thought that there is a thought process that goes behind when you define what is extra-articular. And area beyond the SMCL for a varus knee is what we would call as an extra-articular deformity. So clearly, there was a thought process happening among all of us that there is more to what meets eye when we look at the X-rays. And what we understand now after all this thing is the gaps are not necessarily rectangular. We plan and execute two-dimensionally. Yes, we have always been asked to look at X-rays, and that is how we execute our surgeries. We evaluate and execute static things. We know that joint is not a static structure, and yet we evaluate them for what they are on a picture. And last but not least, the wisdom, the intelligence has shown that if you have an objectivity and experience, you can win any game. Life, sports, and arthroplasty included. This is a picture from the Scopy images of 2 compartments, and you can see that although we have been taught that the gaps are rectangular, clearly they are not. And this has been also shown in a study by my dear friend Seb Parrott, that the gap opening at different levels and different flexion on the different sides are indeed different. Something which experience showed us, but the textbook always taught us a certain other thing. So what exactly is the intelligent alignment today? It's really common sense. You marry the biology with the laws of biomechanics, and our aim is to be hitting a moving target. We know that the targets have to be accurate and precise, but when we talk about different variety of humans, it's about hitting a moving target. So when we look at knee replacement in particular, and I'm talking now how do we do it, is to balance force across all the joint and understand that it may be different for different people. It's a dynamic thing, and it's like hitting a moving target. How do I do this intelligent alignment? I set negotiable and non-negotiable terms, exploit the 6 degrees of freedom of component positioning and 6 degrees of freedom of translation of component, and use technology to hit the moving target. The philosophy, it's always about stronger house and happy home. We all know that we want our houses to be strong and our homes to be happy. So when I do an arthroplasty, I use the exact same analogy. I will not let my pillars to be changed. At the same time, internal arrangement in the house or the home can be done to make the balance good. So that way you can have a joint that lasts lifetime probably, and you will have a home or a patient reported outcome to be much superior. We do this, most of us know how we can exploit 6 degrees of freedom, and we have the goal that is to balance force all across the joint and not to stray too far away from the biomechanics. So for me, my non-negotiable is that I will not give a dial in more than 5 degree varus overall alignment and 2 degree valgus, not change the individual component of varus valgus by 3 degrees, medial and lateral balance not more than 3 millimeter difference, flexion extension gap not more than 2 millimeters, which can be slightly loose in extension for knees and slightly loose in flexion for unis. I want a good component positioning and I want to have a good joint line. If I do these things correctly, I'll have a very or more than decent joint. But then I have certain negotiable. I can shift the femur anteriorly or posteriorly. I can downsize or upsize femur and tibia. I can dial in varus valgus of up to 3 degree in each component. I can dial in rotation and I can change slope. And you'll see that together with this, there is a lot of permutation combination, and robotics enables to do this properly. And if you look at this, this is my happiness scale. With robotics, I think majority of my patients are in very happy scale where we have to dial minimum degree of varus valgus. I have my balance is accurate, my components are perfectly aligned, and I do minimal release. But those difficult cases where I can't get the first column, the second column is where I rest, where I dial in certain varus valgus, I make certain changes, and I do a moderate release. With robotics, the third column has been completely eliminated today, and I do not believe I'll be really, really unhappy and pissed off if I have to do the third one. A few videos in which we are doing this, you can see with the robotics, we have an ability to capture the gaps accurately. We have got the way where we are balancing. You'll see how I'm changing my component to kind of ensure that without releases, I can get a gap, which I believe will be very good for this particular patient. And this is more so when I do unis. It's such a brilliant operation, and I think I'll be dogmatic here. In today's age and day, the robotics is the only way to do a uni. If you have to do a uni and you have to do a good uni, you have to have a robotic. And this is the another slide in which you can see the component positioning alteration, and the edge loading can be virtually eliminated by using robotics. So I think clearly for robotics, if there's one operation even today, one can be dogmatic about doing it robotically, it is the unis. And of course, the execution is the next part, and you'll see that the ability to execute to sub-millimeter or a less than a degree variation is what makes robotics different from navigation. Navigation was a leap forward where we could understand the kinematics better, where we could understand our gap better, but ability to eliminate the human element of error while executing a process was what makes robotics leaps and bounds superior to the navigation. So you'll see that all the white areas here are the areas where we want to achieve, and they can be achieved with utmost precision when you are doing robotics. So in short, when we look at the arthroplasty intelligence, it is to reproduce the constitutional alignment, intelligent pre-execution planning, reconstitute the native coronal alignment, restore dynamic sagittal alignment, maintain joint line obliquity and height, have implants that match patient's anatomy, and it should be balanced joint throughout the flexion extension range. Again, these are the end results, these are the goals, and you know where we started from. Of course, it's an evolution and not revolution. In Hindi, we say, picture abhi baki hai, means that there is still so much more to come. And that's why when we are in transition, there will be debates. There will be debate between image is better or imageless is better, semi-automatic versus automatic, haptic feedback, the native inherent intelligence of these devices. But the time will only solve each of those. And we are in still that phase where we'll continue to struggle, because we still don't know what is the alignment target, how to achieve it. Does changing this really alter the survivabilities, and what really impacts? patient satisfaction. And I'll here say one important thing. We'll be repeatedly told that the science is settled, and I've put this because in 1949, the inventor of lobotomy was given a Nobel Prize for medicine. So believe me, when we look at this slide, science is never settled. It's always an evolution. It's always what we feel is settled, keeps on altering. And let me not leave this podium without discussing the elephant in the room. Whenever I talk about robotics, I am asked, where is the proof? Does it really make a difference? What about the clinical outcome? So yes, friends, the data is still coming. With any new technology, you will not have the data in the first decade. But the data is there, out there, and it is still coming, and you'll see that the rate of revision, the survivability that we were chasing is indeed becoming better and better. Of course, we need to have a balanced view whenever we look at these things, but the forgotten joint score here and the survivability, definitely we are starting to see budding evidences on how the accuracy and our understanding will impact our outcomes. Last but not least, what does the future hold? I don't know what it holds, but I know it belongs to those who see not only what it is, but what it could be, what it should be, and more importantly, what it should not be. So when we look at future, I think one element that we need is training our next generation. I think it's our responsibility to pass on the baton to the people who need to learn this technology and be open about it. We need to give them space to learn, and I think the robotics should be for all. Of course, this is something that I wrote, and I know I'm in an August gathering and I can simulate debate. The technology has to be affordable and accessible, and I strongly believe that it has to be open source. Today, the world is going open source. I know there are certain industry representatives here also. We should not have robots buried to a particular implant. If we want anywhere to increase, any industry, any philosophy to get expanded, it has to be open. And I think the way forward for robotics will be to chart an independent course and be an open source platform. Of course, when we talk about deep learning, I think it is one of the most overused words. We also require deep listening. This is another editorial that I published, and I think it is something which is very dear to me. To create this future, we must continue to learn deeply, and for that we must first listen deeply, listen to the past, listen to our teachers, listen to our patients, listen to our next generation, but most importantly, listen to the real data. And finally, will it and should it replace us? I would just end with this last slide. This is a Mahabharat picture in which Abhimanyu is the protagonist, and he knows how to enter a Chakravyuh, which is like a maze, but is unable to get out of it. If we own the story, then only we can write the ending. So I think it is time to own the story. Remember that a rock in bad hand killed Abel, a rock in good hand killed Goliath. It's not about the rock, it's about how you use it. So our quest for excellence in humans is eternal. The man and machine tango will deliver unparalleled result in all human endeavors. The machine data forces us to introspect. It makes a bad surgeon an average surgeon a better surgeon, and an excellent surgeon an opportunity to open the doors to the paradigm shift. Last but not least, the future is always at our door and it keeps knocking. And the best way to predict the future is to create it. And I'm sure this audience here is here to create future. I thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Vaibhav, for that wonderful lecture and a glimpse into the future too. I think we have a long way to go, and science is ever evolving, and that is the crux, So on behalf of SICOT and SICOT President, Professor Hernigo, well, I'm honored to give you this award for the plenary lecture.